And welcome back to another Touchpoint Group Insight session. And we are looking at the main banks in the UK. And we're going to have a look back at the year 2022 in review. A big year for most. And Tony Patrick, let's jump straight into it and really get the dish on what happened in 2022.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. So looking today at the UK, Lloyds, Barclays, NatWest, Nationwide, Santander, and HSBC. Let's just jump straight in, see what's happened. So, the story of the year, as you can see there, is HSBC. Well, it's a major improvements from June to July. That's the biggest improvement we've seen across any of the banks. Although the biggest improvement means they weren't doing too well in the first place. But again, it's a big improvement. Let's just change the scale in this and move it to the past 6 months so we can remove that movement there from HSBC. So one of the things that, although HSBC has improved, they are still sitting lower than a lot of the others they compared to or up against in a sense. So they're still sitting around 3.8 compared to others. But the likes of Lloyds has been so consistent across the year. NatWest has picked up in the past few months really well, like just above 4 to about 4.5. So a very good improvement from them. Let's move ourselves forward though and have a look at how that compares to others. So just looking at the major UK banks here. So Lloyds is doing really well, although there's a few drops across the year. So an award goes out to Lloyds from my perspective about their consistency in this particular category across the year for these major banks. Barclays has also done reasonably well. They're sitting just behind Lloyds. And their consistency is pretty good. So the major gap between 4.1 and 4.5, but reasonably good consistency across the year. We also see Santander is sitting there. They've sort of remained reasonably flat across the year. And as I said, you can see clearly the red zone for HSBC at the start of the year to their improvement at the end of the year. But again, as I said, that hasn't changed things much. Their rank is 13th overall, but only remains 11th in December and in the last quarter. So although it's an improvement, they've improved to be just below the others. They've still got some room to move to get to that next level. So let's have a look though at what's going on here. So those of you who are sort of regular listeners, you can see in here that one of the things we look at here is what we call our SURF analysis. And this is around security, which is about logging in and things like that. Usability, which is sort of user interface and being able to use the app properly. Reliability and functionality. So clearly, we can see that HSBC hasn't done that well across the year in those areas. But we can see, though, why Lloyds is doing so well. It has actually, for example, security and authentication, it's down to only 3.1% of people mentioning this as an issue. Now, again, these are problem areas, so you want these to be reduced as much as possible. So doing pretty well there. And usability is down 6.5, which is great. They're actually pushing things down to a new level. So Lloyds is the one to look out for amongst this particular group to improve on. Let's have a look at the year in review of journeys. Now, this is a slightly different perspective in that what we're looking at here is when people mention each of these types of journeys, like checking your account balancing, monitoring account activity, transferring between accounts, what we want here is a higher score, so people are happy with that experience. We can see here that HSBC is when they've got sort of technical issues, these obviously flow on to these journeys as well. We can see they're having issues across the board. Whereas when Lloyds customers actually are working with these areas or using these journeys, they're actually having a very positive experience. Particular things like making P2P payments, they definitely stand out compared to others. So others need to pick their act up and look at Lloyds to what they're doing in this particular area. So a very positive move across the board. Let's have a brief look though at what's the big stories coming through for each of these banks? Where do they stand out compared to their competitors? So this view we've got here is actually looking at the big conversations coming through from each of these particular topics. So this is looking at Lloyds. So very big green coming through is the general experience here. Good service channel, good mobile app. It's good. It's great to use. It's easy to navigate. Pops out as well. So very positive view coming through. Or there's a couple of small things. The app logout feature, in general, that means people being logged out without wanting to, and some issues with passwords. But in general, you can see that's very green. Let's move along to one that's sort of similar. So Barclays is doing really well. I'll just jump into that one and look at this sort of top level to see how they're going. And I'll look at a couple at the bottom to see how they're going there as well. So again, even though Barclays is near the top, we can see there's room to improve to go to that next level. So it's fast, there's good service, it's reliable, it's efficient. Yeah, great. But things like paying by check is slightly, it's below average. Moving money. So moving money is it's a broad topic around moving money around the app. There's sort of some issues coming through there, and that could come through things like poor check deposits and things like that. So again, and even things down here about contactless payment issues coming through as well. Reasonably positive, but still some negative things popping through. Let's move down to the other end of the scale. Obviously, HSBC we saw across the year. Let's look at them because we can sort of, it's a nice, clear comparison about what's gone on in this world. So again, there's issues with app updates, there's app crashes, there's technical issues. That was what was happening at the start of the year. So it's a thing they've actually fixed to some extent in the second half of the year, but still room to grow for them in this particular area. So major sort of technical issues across the year. And just one more while we're here is just having a look at the sort of middle of the road here, Nationwide. Yeah, they're doing reasonably well, but let's have a look at their score is 4.1, but there's a few things coming through where they can fix things. So things like this issues with the card, transferring money, and app PE details. So some issues for them to fix up along the way to actually do. So again, there's no big major technical issues popping out here for me, but it's around just fixing those journeys to make sure they're functioning well for customers. So a big year for this group, and there's a lot of room for improvement as well. So thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Tony. And if anybody wants a copy of that ranking chart where we look at the entire UK market and segment it into how they performed over the year, over the last quarter, and in December, feel free to sing out. And we're looking forward to a 2023 of growth for all.